Pnawn da i chi gyd, noswaith dda, croeso cynnes i chi gyd yma heddi. Welcome, very warm welcome to you all. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd am ymuno â ni longyfarch a dathlu enillwyr medaliau Cymdeithas Ddysgedi Cymru eleni. Thank you very much for joining us to congratulate and celebrate this year's Learned Society of Wales medalists. Each year the Society awards medals for outstanding research in several fields. Anyone can make a nomination and anyone can be nominated. This year, I'm delighted to say we received a record number of nominations, and as ever, the quality of the nominations was very high. This made the task of our award committees both a pleasure and a challenge. I'm very pleased to say and to see that some of the committee chairs and members are here with us this evening. So the first thing I want to do is to say a huge thank you to them for all their work in assessing all of this information. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd am eich holl waith. Our medals were established to enhance recognition of the excellence of research in and connected to Wales. In that sense, they form part of the tradition of medals and other prizes awarded for many years by academies and societies. They also celebrate Wales's long tradition of scholarly excellence, with their names promoting overlooked figures from the past. You can find out more about the people the medals are named after on our society's website. We are very grateful to the funders of our medals for their support. The Hogan and Hugh Owen medals are funded by Welsh Government. Thank you. The Menelaus is supported by the South Wales Institute of Engineering Educational Trust. Thank you again. And the Dilwyn medals are supported by Airbus. Thank you to you also. Now to our medalists. I'm delighted that this evening we are joined by this year's 6 medalists: Professor Diane Edwards, Dr. Drew Nelson, Professor E.J. Reynolds, Dr. Emrys Evans, Dr. Annie Tubaji, and Dr. Ben Gai. Congratulations to you all. Llongyfarchiadau i chi gyd. So, to start the proceedings proper, let's turn to Professor Diane Edwards, Distinguished Research Professor at Cardiff University, is this year's recipient of the Francis Hogan Medal. Now, I don't think Diane needs a lot of introduction. It's a great personal pleasure for me to introduce Diane's work in this way. And the award is to celebrate outstanding research by women in STEM subjects. Apart from all her distinguished research work, just to say at the very beginning, Diane is a founding fellow of the Society and was our inaugural Vice President for Science, Technology and Medicine. She was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1996. And if, like me, you've had the pleasure of having conversations or visiting Diane's office, you will know she has a keen interest on sharing her passion, which is an absolute joy to be part of. She was one of the founders of the National Botanic Gardens of Wales, for which she received her CBE in 1999. So we have a short video now to explain more about Diane's research. So let's move to that. Many congratulations, Diane. And I'm sure you'll all agree Diane is a very, very worthy winner of this particular medal. We move on to look at now at the Menelaus Medal, which is awarded to celebrate excellence in engineering and technology. And I'm delighted to note the fact that this year, Dr. Drew Nelson has received this year's award. Again, Drew is very well known to our community here in South Wales. He is a co-founder and president of IQE, which local Welsh company with an international profile in the semiconductor field. He's been at the forefront of South Wales' emergence as a hub for what is now compound semiconductors, for their manufacturing. He really is a human dynamo, if I'm allowed to use those words. I've had the pleasure of working with Drew, and he's an exciting, challenging, incredibly inspirational individual to work with. And he is, you know, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he's been an enormous force in pulling together government, academia, and the private sector in developing the region as a cluster of excellence. Drew is traveling to this evening, didn't want to depend on technology on the road, and he recorded a message earlier this week. So we'll move to that next.
Hello everyone, my name is Drew Nelson and I am the co-founder and CEO of IQE PLC, which is headquartered in St Mellons just outside Cardiff. I'm also the chairman of Newport Wafer Fab, which is located in Dyffryn on the outskirts of Newport. Both companies are involved in the production of advanced semiconductors. In the case of IQE, it manufactures epitaxial wafers and exports them around the world. In the case of Newport Wafer Fab, it takes wafers and makes them into chips, which is subsequently used in a host of advanced applications. So both companies are involved as critical parts of the global supply chain for semiconductors, a critical subject right now. It's a great honour and privilege for me to be awarded the Menelaus Medal in recognition of the work I've been involved with in creating and building the compound semi-cluster in South Wales, which is now widely recognised as the sovereign semiconductor supply chain, not only for Wales, but for the UK as a whole, supporting a wide range of downstream industrial activities from automotive, aerospace and defence to communications, healthcare and robotics. The cluster is also recognised globally as a key semiconductor hub with powerful links to other growing semiconductor clusters around the world. So it's perhaps somewhat ironic and appropriate that through the compound semi-cluster, Wales is now playing a critical role in the development of the fourth industrial revolution driven by digitalisation and automation, in much the same way that Wales played such an important role in the development of the first industrial revolution that William Menelaus was such a key part of. He was a great innovator, and that spirit of innovation is very much at the heart of the work the various entities comprising the compound semiconductor cluster are involved with. Compound semiconductors have many unique and advanced material properties compared with silicon, which has been the main semiconductor material of the last 60 years. Compound semis operate much more quickly than silicon and use much less power. But most importantly, compound semis harness the incredible power of light and radio frequency wavelengths. These latter properties have been exploited to the full in building the entire global communications system, from optical fibre networks delivering our high-speed broadband and hyperscale data centres, to RF communications used in mobile handsets, Wi-Fi hotspots, and all the RF infrastructure networks from 2G to 6G. The various entities comprising the compound semi-cluster are using all their creative capacity to further enhance and develop compound semiconductor technology, integrating them with all sorts of other materials in highly innovative ways. And in doing so, we are building extremely powerful alignment between academia and industry, so key to the future success of both. Indeed, Cardiff University played a critical role in the creation of the cluster, and both Swansea and Cardiff universities are key players in the ongoing development and growth of the cluster. So let me thank the Learned Society of Wales for this most prestigious award, of which I am a very proud recipient. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Drew. And again, I'm sure you all agree, a very, very worthy winner of the Menelaus Medal. So to move on then to the next medal, that's the Hugh Owen Medal. And this year's recipient is Professor E.J. Reynolds for outstanding educational research in Wales. She works on gender and sexuality education. This has supported children and young people to speak about their experiences, from sexual harassment in primary schools to LGBTQ+ youth equalities and rights. Professor Reynolds played a central role in the development of Wales's new statutory relationships and sexuality education curriculum. We have a video message next from EJ.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be awarded the Hugh Owen Medal this year. Winning this award means such a great deal because it recognises and platforms the significance of innovative education research in Wales. And in my field, it's how feminist, creative and co-produced research can inform gender and sexuality education policy and practice. Over the last 10 years, I've been co-producing research, activism and engagement events and forums with schools, youth groups, third sector agencies, policymakers, to support children and young people to speak out about their often silenced experiences, from sexual harassment in primary schools to LGBTQ+ youth equalities and rights. A lot of this work has involved designing and drawing upon creative methods for children and young people to safely communicate the issues that matter to them, and then to ensure that their views are heard and shared and acted upon. And one of the moments I've been most proud of was to distill this creative praxis into the agenda resource and website. So this little film you see behind me captures one of the case studies in the resource of children writing on rulers and ribbons and kites what they want to change to make gender equality and justice matter and fly. And over the last 3 years, we've been sharing this creative praxis in an innovative professional learning programme for teachers in Wales who are preparing for the new statutory relationships and sexuality education curriculum, a curriculum which I continue to have the privilege to inform and shape. And it's a resource and a creative and ethical praxis that's having a significant international reach in the field of RSE, from Finland to Australia. But it started and it has become embedded here in Wales. And so this award from the Learned Society for Wales is especially poignant because of the legacy it will leave for future generations of feminist educational researchers, of maybe what can be possible when co-production and collaborations are sustained over time, so that then we can work together to respond and become responsible for how it comes to matter and how it can make a difference beyond the university.
Thank you very much indeed, EJ, and many congratulations again on the award. Absolutely delighted to see that this evening. So the final part of this evening's proceedings, we turn to our 3 Dilwyn medalists, Dr. Emrys Evans, Dr. Annie Tubaji, and Dr. Ben Guy. The Dilwyn medals recognize outstanding early career researchers, and maybe at this point we will turn to you, Martin, to say a little bit more about the Society's work generally for early career researchers.
Thank you, Howell. Good evening, everybody. I'm the Chief Executive of the Learned Society of Wales, and great pleasure of mine to be able to work and provide support for early career researchers throughout Wales. And just to say a few brief words, over the last year we've developed a new early career researchers national network for Wales, which now has nearly 800 members. They cover all of the institutions of Wales and many, many different academic disciplines, as well as some people beyond academia. We've organised so far for the network 4 workshops covering areas including impact, public engagement, mental health for researchers and funding opportunities, and those have been attended by an average of well over 100 people. So there's a lot of demand out there, and we plan to develop that work more, potentially into an early careers academy for Wales. Now, in that context, it's great that we award these 3 Dilwyn medals each year, which of course represent the very best in achievement by early career researchers with a link to Wales. And we know from previous winners' testimonials that winning the medals helps them to build their grant profiles, builds reputation within their institutions. It can accelerate their career progression, and at a personal level can build confidence and self-belief. So I'll pass back to you, Hywel, to again introduce this year's winners. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. So the first Dilwyn Medal to be announced and awarded this evening is for STEM, and this is awarded to Dr. Emrys Evans, a Royal Society University Research Fellow in Chemistry at Swansea University. Emrys works in the field of organic semiconductors, studying a new class of materials with potential applications ranging from optoelectronics to quantum information science. Llongyfarchiadau Emrys, and I'm delighted to invite you to say a few words maybe about your work if you wish to do so, but look forward to hearing your message, shall we say.
Thank you very much. Just to introduce a bit about my work, I work in physical chemistry, really on the frontier between chemistry and physics, where my research is on molecular materials and studying their electronic, magnetic, and optical properties. And it's in these optical properties, how materials interact with light, how they absorb light and emit light, which has been a big focus of my research to date, and to demonstrate how we can use this understanding to develop materials which overcome efficiency limits in optoelectronics, in light-emitting diodes, which convert electricity to light. And it's in these application directions which have been the drivers and test beds for me to do my work and my science. And in the future, I'm excited to see where this understanding of these materials can lead beyond the established technologies, beyond these light-emitting applications, and if we can impact a new emerging field of quantum technologies, whether these optical and magnetic properties can be used in better sensors, more secure communication. So thank you very much for this award. I want to thank my mentors, particularly my collaborators, colleagues, and the students that I've worked with from past to present. I'm totally thrilled. I grew up in Swansea, and I'm excited to have returned last year to work in the scientific community here in Wales. And so this award comes at a very special time for me as I start up my research from Wales. So diolch yn fawr, thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Emyr, and llongyfarchiadau unwaith eto. Thanks again, and thanks very much, and congratulations again. Your work sounds really interesting. I'm sure that Drew Nelson will be knocking on your door before too long, if he's not already. Our second medal today is it's the Dilwyn Medal for Social Sciences, Education and Business. And this year's recipient is Dr. Annie Tubaji, also of Swansea University. Annie is a senior lecturer in economics and is recognized for her work on cultural bias, inequality and discrimination. Most recently, she has focused on inequality, mental health and polarization during the COVID-19 crisis, work that has gained international coverage. I feel as if I know a little of Annie's work already, because Annie was a panelist in a launch event last week for the Wales Innovation Network, and I listened with great interest and was absolutely delighted to hear of your work. But I look forward to hearing more this evening. So with many congratulations, Annie, may I now invite you to say a few words about your area of work.
Thank you, Professor Thomas. My name is Annie, and I'm assistant professor in economics and in cultural economics in specific. What I would like first to start with is a cordial thanks to the Learning Society of Wales for giving me the Dillwyn Medal, because the Dillwyn family has combined this intellectual curiosity and rational decision-making, obviously, and emotional intelligence of altruism and loving the world. And these two things are the cornerstones of what I'm doing research on. Culture-based development is interested in the combination of the rational cost-benefit analysis, the interest that people are chasing, and how this combines with the emotional intelligence of being altruistic. How the emotion is translated by through the filter of culture into a feeling of love for the others that will order our preferences in a way that we cooperate and share with each other. And this filter culture is something very interesting. It is both one of the most stable things, most durable things that we have. It's quite persistent over time. That's why places and groups identify with their culture, isn't it? But in the same time, it is surprisingly volatile, and understanding these complex dynamics that it has is very important, because changing the culture of people with very small degrees and the way that they cooperate with each other and the modes that they create as norms for this cooperation is what changes radically the world and can change the systems and can change the future of these systems, in whether they will flourish or whether they will collapse and the world will perish. And this is already known as a consequence in complexity theories, in many mathematical sciences, but it is not known how culture and the dynamics of culture exactly is structured and how it interacts with the economic decision-making process. And this is the interdisciplinary cutting edge on which my research is based. And in order just to illustrate to you how dramatic the cultural change can be, I can give you an example from Bulgaria. We normally support different minorities. We have supported the Jews, we have supported the Armenians, and this is because of cultural persistence. We have been suppressed for something like 5 centuries as a country during the Ottoman presence. And I have grown up there, and I'm part Bulgarian, part Syrian, and I've always felt part of the place and embraced, and never even thought that I could have been discriminated there. It was a thought that came to my mind 2 days ago while I was walking here on the beach, and I was thinking what to share today with you. And it was absolutely shocking to me when 2 years ago I heard on the Bulgarian TV children expressing hatred towards the Syrian refugees that had arrived. This was not the country that I knew. For 3 decades, it had changed in a way that I couldn't recognize the place. When I was born, a lady in Bulgaria died, and her name was Lyudmila Zhivkova, and her main idea was that you put children together to play together and create art together so that they create the peaceful future of the world. And this country, which was moving this initiative on international level in UNESCO, was now emitting in my face an image that I couldn't recognize as my birthplace. And this strong sway of behavior, this could not be something that can be ignored. And as you know, it's a process which is happening throughout the whole of Europe. There is a lot of radicalization, a lot of polarization also. So while people get radicalized, they seem sometimes to go to this non-altruistic behavior, but sometimes they turn even more altruistic. And it's very important to understand this switch in the type of alerted extreme behavior that you will observe. Because without altruism, we end up in the trap of otherness, othering some group and creating inequalities which are dangerous for the entire system and the entire performance of the world of ours. And nowadays we live in times of a new industrial revolution. This artificial intelligence agent has so much opportunity, and perhaps the tomorrow of the artificial intelligence will be much more productive, much more successful. But if we have groups that will be silently othered and will not have access not only to using artificial intelligence, but to this subtle and very dangerous knowledge inequality of knowing how it is made, knowing how it operates in the world and how it delegates power, then we will create new pockets of inequality, which will build further traps for our socioeconomic development. And this is something which interests me and where I'm working together on with understanding more about the dynamics of altruism and its evolution over time and its complexity. So on this note, I would like to remember the altruism of those who supported me and to thank very much everybody who is here today, my colleagues and my friends. Thanks for making the time to be here, but very much, of course, the very three people who promoted my application, and these are Professor Yogesh Dwivedi from our university at Swansea, who has been an inspiration ever since I landed in Swansea 2 years ago and integrated me in his research projects on artificial intelligence and keeps working very generously with me. To Professor John Hall, who has been part of my path from the very start of my career. He gave me my first copy of Religion and Economics Research, of the book of Weber on the Protestant ethics and the spirit of capitalism, and has been an inspiration with his work on culture and Veblen in specific. And of course, to Professor Andres Rodriguez Pose, whom I chased on a train to ask about the quality of my CV when I was in the first years after my PhD. So thank you very much. Thanks again to my wonderful colleagues here in Wales, and I hope we'll make a lot together. And talking of cooperation, I want to say that I really hope to cooperate with the third medalist, Ben, because his work is really exciting and very much related to what I'm doing about the Welsh Not and the othering of Wales. So Ben, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Annie, and many congratulations once again. It's fascinating to hear about your work. Our final award this evening goes to Dr. Ben Guy, and that's the Dillwyn Medalist for Humanities and Creative Arts. Ben is a Fellow of Robinson's College and Teaching Associate at the University of Cambridge. His research explores the written culture of medieval Wales, and he teaches the history of early medieval Britain and Ireland. Thank you, Ben, for coming along tonight to talk a little bit about your work. We look forward to hearing what you have to say with great interest, and many congratulations on this award.
Thank you very much. A diolch yn fawr iawn i'r Gymdeithas am y wobr hon. So I'll begin just by giving a flavour of my research. It's a cliche, I think, to say that Wales has poor historical sources, and that would lead you to say less about Wales in the past. But when it comes to the body of genealogical writing surviving from Wales from across many centuries, that simply isn't true. And indeed, Wales has one of the most substantial and richest corpuses of this type of material from anywhere in Europe. It is very early, going back to the 9th century, and by the 15th and 16th centuries becomes really enormous. And indeed, the production of genealogical and family history writing within Wales in the 16th century was really a cottage industry going on across the entire country. It's been very little studied in the past, aside from some heroic efforts by the likes of Peter Bartram and Michael Siddons to reduce it to a manageable form. And they effectively just went through this body of information, trying to understand what it was saying, and produced family tree diagrams effectively, that are much used nowadays by family history researchers across Wales, and indeed by historians too. But it was always frustrating that so little work was done on the genealogies as historical sources, as documents from the past, and as windows really into cultural history, in such a way as to make them much more usable for political, cultural, and indeed literary history. There was a need to return to the basics, to manuscript studies, comparing the texts, thinking about the historical context. And to that end, I've spent a great deal of time in recent years in places like the National Library of Wales, our wonderful research institute in Aberystwyth, and elsewhere too, in places like the British Library. This has led to some interesting and sometimes unexpected findings, including some new sources for Wales in the 9th and 10th centuries, which is quite a rare thing indeed. And indeed for later centuries, this work has acted as a kind of spotlight on where the cultural engines of production really were in Wales, highlighting, for example, the core role of the northeast of Flintshire and Denbighshire in the 15th and 16th centuries for bringing Wales into the Renaissance. So what does this recognition mean for me? Well, my field of study is both big and small in different ways. In terms of the proportion of written material surviving from Wales's past and its pervasiveness throughout society's thinking, it's quite a big subject, because because people in the past ascribed such a large amount of significance to family connections and writing it down in a particularly Welsh kind of way. But in terms of modern academic work, it's really a tiny field with almost nobody working on it, probably because it seems quite boring to lots of people. It's also one that falls between disciplines in some way, being part history, part literature, part manuscript studies, which makes it rewarding as an interdisciplinary research topic, but also maybe less good at fitting into existing research strategies in university departments. And so for this reason, recognition of this kind of work by Wales's premier scholarly body has been extremely valuable to me, and I hope for this subject, hoping I think to greater recognition of it as a kind of gateway into the cultural priorities of the past over a really quite a long period within Wales, and something that has made Wales distinct in so many ways for such a long time. Diolch yn fawr iawn eto.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Ben. Llongyfarchiadau unwaith eto, diolch eto. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us towards the end of our proceedings for the evening. I think I hope you've been keeping an eye on the chat. There's been some lovely messages coming through on the chat, and I said at the beginning that these medals celebrate Wales's long tradition of scholarly excellence, and I certainly feel at the end of this proceedings today, we've definitely heard more again about the scholarly excellence that exists here in Wales and is currently being pursued. So what I'd like to do now is invite everyone in the audience to turn on their camera and unmute their computers and join me in not a virtual, but almost a real round of applause for our medalists. So if you feel that you can, please do that. Please do so, and we'll mark our medalists' achievement in the usual way. So, na ddiwedd byddach am heno. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi gyd am ddod, a sgwmlaen I weld chi eto ar yr achlysur nesaf. Pob hwyl am nawr. Noswaith dda I chi gyd. Thank you very much for coming. End of proceedings for tonight, and look forward to seeing you when we next meet. Noswaith dda.
Diolch yn fawr, nos da.
Nos da I chi gyd.
Do you want a bit of salad for you, Keith?